In life, we often wait. We wait for the right moment, the right energy, the right mindset. But what if I told you the right moment is not something you wait for? It is something you create. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like doing it. Because your feelings, they are like the weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy. But the path remains the same. The practice must be walked regardless of the clouds overhead. When you train in the Shaolin temple, you wake up early. Whether it's cold, whether it's raining, or whether your body aches. You move. Why? Because movement is life. Because routine is your weapon. You do not ask yourself every morning, do I feel like training today? No. You train because it is who you are. So remember this. Your mind will always whisper comfort. Rest a little longer. Start tomorrow. Skip just once. And if you listen, even once, it gets louder. But if you act despite it, it grows quiet. You silence the excuses by taking action. So when the resistance comes, when the feeling says no, you say, that's when I move. That's when I begin. And that is how you grow. One of the greatest illusions we face in modern life is the belief that action must be preceded by the right feeling, that we must feel energized to move, motivated to act, inspired to begin. But in the training of the mind and in the ancient teachings of discipline, this illusion is exposed. We do not wait to feel right. We act to become right. Discipline is not about doing something when the sun is shining, the wind is at your back, and your body is rested. No, discipline is the act of walking into the storm and still choosing to move forward. It is the decision to place your foot down on the path. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Many people believe they lack motivation, but what they truly lack is discipline. Motivation is like the wind. It comes and goes. It is fleeting. Some days it is strong, other days absent. But discipline is the mountain. It does not move when the weather changes. Discipline is the stillness you cultivate within. When everything outside is pulling you away from the work, the purpose, the practice. When we learn not to act based on emotion, we free ourselves from the endless rise and fall of our feelings. One day you feel powerful, so you act. The next you feel low, so you stop. But life cannot be built on such unstable ground. To live a meaningful life, you must act beyond emotion. The Shaolin tradition teaches us this every day. In the early hours, when the sky is dark and sleep clings to the mind, we rise. Not because we feel like it. In fact, many mornings the body is sore, the eyes heavy, and the mind whispers, just a little more rest. But that is exactly when you must stand. That is when the spirit is tested. True strength does not come when things are easy. It comes when you act in defiance of your own resistance. That resistance, be it laziness, fear, or fatigue, is a gate that must be passed not with emotion but with intention. Discipline is the key. Emotions are not your enemy, but they are not your guide either. Emotions are signals. They tell you how you feel in the moment, but the path you walk must be decided by something greater than a fleeting signal. When a farmer wakes before sunrise to tend the field, he does not ask if he feels like it. He understands that the harvest depends on his consistency. The warrior trains not because every day is easy, but because each day of discipline sharpens his mind. You must train your mind like a muscle to act, regardless of emotion. Because every time you choose action over feeling, you reclaim control, you remove the chains of impulsiveness. You become free, not because you are untouched by emotion, but because you are unmoved by it when it matters. Motivation is a beautiful thing when it is present. It lights the fire within, gives you energy to begin, and fills your mind with possibility. But it is also unreliable. It comes in waves, it fades, and it is often tied to things outside of you. A certain environment, a specific mood, a piece of music, a speech. But life is not built on waves. It is built on foundation. And that foundation is consistency. Consistency is what remains when motivation leaves. It is the discipline of showing up again and again with or without the spark. If motivation is the wind that pushes you forward, consistency is the legs that walk you there, step by step, regardless of the weather. We must not confuse excitement with purpose. Many begin a new journey, whether in health, skill, or personal development, with a surge of motivation. They train hard the first day, full of energy. The second day, they feel sore, but still show up. By the third day, life distracts them, and the energy is gone, and so they stop. Why? Because they depended on motivation to carry them. But mastery does not come from bursts. It comes from rhythm, from repetition, from returning to the path day after day, even when the fire is small, especially when the fire is small. The Shaolin monks do not train because they are always motivated. They train because consistency transforms the body, sharpens the mind, and awakens the spirit. Consistency is also a kind of meditation. It is the art of surrendering to the process. You do not need to conquer the mountain in a single day. You only need to climb one step, one breath, one repetition. Consistency does not demand greatness. It only demands presence, that you show up, that you stay committed, that you honor your word to yourself, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. The true strength of a human being is not how loud they begin. It is how quietly and relentlessly they endure, day after day, moment by moment. This is how change takes place, quietly, gradually, powerfully. In the modern world, many chase quick results. They want instant transformation, overnight success. But the truth is this: greatness is not an event, it is a habit. And habits are formed through consistency. Not for a week, not for a month, but for years. That is why the Shaolin path is not about extremes. It is about devotion, slow and steady cultivation of skill, repetition of the basics, until the basics become mastery. And in this repetition, in this consistency, you discover something deeper than motivation. You discover identity. You are no longer someone who tries to be disciplined. You become the disciplined one, not because you are always inspired, but because you have learned how to remain. Comfort is the silent killer of growth. It whispers, "You have done enough," even when you have not touched your limits. It lulls the mind into a sense of satisfaction, not based on progress, but on ease. And in a world increasingly built around convenience, fast food, instant answers, effortless entertainment, this comfort becomes dangerous. It becomes a prison with soft walls. You cannot train the body, the mind, or the spirit while staying inside that comfort zone. Growth demands discomfort. It demands strain. It demands a willingness to step into difficulty not once but daily. In Shaolin training, this principle is not just understood, it is lived. Pain in the legs, the fire in the lungs, the trembling of the muscles. These are not signs of weakness, but signs that you have entered the gate of transformation. It is important to understand that the purpose of discomfort is not punishment, it is refinement. When a blade is forged, it does not become sharp in cool air. It is shaped by heat and hammer, again and again, until the metal becomes a weapon. So it is with a human being. Without challenge, you do not evolve. Without resistance, your potential remains asleep. People say, "But it hurts," or "I'm tired," or "It's too difficult." Yes, that is the point. That is where the work begins. True training is not just a repetition of movement. It is the overcoming of the inner voice that wants to stop. That voice will tell you to rest, to quit, to wait for a better day. But there is no better day than today, and there is no better moment to grow than the one that stretches you. To train beyond comfort also means to welcome failure. It means to allow yourself to be humbled by difficulty, to stumble without shame, to feel weak without giving up. Many avoid the edge of their ability because they are afraid of looking foolish, of not performing well, of not meeting their own expectations. But this fear is a lie. In Shaolin, we do not fear failure. We embrace it because each time you fall, you discover where you need to rise, and that is wisdom. Comfort never teaches you what you lack. Only struggle does that. The greatest progress happens in the moments you want to give up and choose not to. That is when the spirit reveals itself, not in perfection, but in perseverance. We must train ourselves to seek resistance, not avoid it, whether it is waking up earlier, holding a difficult posture longer, pushing through the last repetition, or sitting in silence when the mind wants to flee. These are the practices that build strength, not just in the body but in the soul. Discomfort is not your enemy, it is your teacher. The soreness, the fatigue, the challenge, these are lessons. They teach you about endurance, about discipline, about resilience. And the more often you step into that discomfort, the more comfortable you become with being uncomfortable. That is the true path of mastery, not the elimination of pain, but the harmony with it. When you learn to train beyond comfort, you are no longer controlled by it. You become free to evolve. There is a voice inside every one of us. It is subtle, quiet, and often disguised as kindness. It says, "You've done enough for today." It whispers, "Rest. Just this once. You deserve it." This voice is not your enemy in the traditional sense. It does not shout or attack. No, it persuades. It negotiates. It seeks your comfort at the cost of your potential. This is the inner voice of resistance, and it exists in everyone, from the beginner to the master. But what separates the disciplined from the defeated is not the absence of that voice, but their relationship with it. Resistance is a constant. You cannot erase it, but you can learn to recognize it and act against it. The goal is not to fight your mind, but to master it. And mastery begins when you stop listening to the voice that keeps you small. In training, this voice becomes loud. When fatigue sets in, it tells you to stop when your muscles ache, to retreat when the next repetition feels too hard, to delay when fear of failure arises. It appears strongest at the threshold of your progress. Why? Because that's when transformation is about to happen. Resistance comes not when you are idle, but when you are about to break through. And so, it becomes a signal. It is not a warning to stop, it is a call to continue. In the Shaolin Temple, when a student feels like stopping, the teacher says, "Now begin," because in that moment when the resistance is loudest, is when the spirit is truly tested. If you can act despite that voice, you silence it, not forever. But each time you disobey it, its power shrinks. There is a misunderstanding in many minds that strength means always feeling confident, always wanting to move, always being ready. But real strength is quiet. It is built in the moments when you do not feel like acting and still act. Every time you choose discipline over delay, action over excuse, you take back control. The more you do this, the more your internal environment changes. The voice of resistance begins to fade, and in its place, a new voice arises. It is not loud. It does not beg. It simply says, "Continue." This is the voice of the trained mind. It speaks less of comfort and more of commitment, less of fear and more of focus. But this voice is not given to you. It is earned. Earned through repetition, through failure, through facing that inner resistance again and again. To silence the inner resistance is not a one-time act. It is a daily ritual. Every morning you wake up, that voice may still be there. It may say, "Stay in bed. You can train later. Skip just once." But if you listen, even once, you feed it. And if you feed it, it grows. That is why we train daily, not only the body, but the mind. Every repetition of discipline is a step toward internal stillness. You do not act based on how you feel. You act based on what you have committed to. This is the way of the martial artist, the monk, the mindful human. You build such strength within that resistance no longer moves you. It may knock, it may speak, but it will not dictate, because your silence, your stillness is louder than its voice. Who are you? Many people answer this question with roles, titles, or dreams. I am a student, I am a parent, I want to be strong, or I try to be disciplined. But these are surface level definitions. They are stories often untested, formed in the mind. The real answer to the question of identity is revealed not through words but through action. You are what you repeatedly do. If every day you train, then you are a practitioner. If every day you show up despite resistance, then you are disciplined. You do not need to convince anyone, not even yourself, through intention. Action is the clearest language of identity. It shapes not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. The Shaolin tradition teaches that the path is not declared, it is walked, and by walking it, you become it. Most people wait to feel like the person they wish to be. They wait for confidence before stepping forward, for passion before starting, for clarity before committing. But confidence does not come first. Action does. Clarity does not precede movement. It is born from it. If you act like a disciplined person long enough, the mind begins to believe, this is who I am now. That is the secret of transformation. It is not mystical. It is not sudden. It is consistent alignment of behavior with intention. Over time, this alignment reprograms your beliefs. You go from I'm trying to I am, from someday to every day. In Shaolin practice, we train before sunrise, not to prove anything, but to affirm something, to affirm who we are. Each push, each repetition, each uncomfortable step, it reinforces a truth that we are no longer who we were yesterday. When you choose action, especially in moments when it is difficult, you reinforce a powerful internal message. I am not ruled by feeling, I am ruled by choice. That is identity. It is the difference between saying, I want to be the kind of person who gets up early, and actually getting up early. You may do it once, twice, but if you do it every day, without question, it no longer becomes something you do. It becomes something you are. This is not ego, it is embodiment. You embody the values you practice. You become your habits. Even the smallest consistent action begins to rewrite your self-image. You begin to look in the mirror and see not the same person with doubts and limitations, but someone who has acted despite them. That is how transformation occurs, from the inside out. To redefine identity through action also means letting go of the false identities you've carried. I'm lazy, I always give up, I'm not strong enough. These are not truths, they are histories. And histories can be rewritten, not through declarations, but through discipline. You may have lived many years repeating those limiting patterns, but the moment you choose differently, a new identity begins to form. It is not instant. Identity is slow, steady construction, like stone laid on stone. But each decision to rise, to act, to train, adds another brick, and over time, a new self is built, not based on potential, but on proof. This is why action is sacred. It is not just physical movement, it is spiritual authorship. With each act of discipline, you write a new story of who you are. And in doing so, you become the author, not the prisoner of your identity. So remember this. You are not here to wait for the perfect moment. You are not here to chase a feeling. You are here to build step by step, breath by breath, something far deeper than motivation. You are here to build discipline, to move even when the mind says no, to act especially when the comfort calls. Because this is how transformation begins. Not with a spark, but with consistency in the absence of one. Train when you don't feel ready. Move when the body feels tired. Show up when the voice of resistance tells you to sit still. This is the path, the way, and every time you walk it, even with trembling legs, you grow stronger. Do not underestimate the quiet power of repetition. Do not seek fireworks. Seek the fire that stays lit when the world goes dark. That fire is discipline, and when you train it without excuses, without delay, you no longer just do hard things. You become someone who does hard things. And that is how you rise. Not because you always felt like it, but because you did it anyway.